it's a livity. So it's a way of life, right? And to be a part of it, it represents freedom. And that's why so many people are attracted to it, is because it really is about do good, live a good life, be free, and, through Rastafari, roots and culture reggae music emerged. And then you have one of our greatest ambassadors for Rastafari, Bob Marley. So I grew up listening to Bob Marley and his messaging. Some of his verses are taken directly from His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie's speeches. He just made them lyrics.
Welcome back to Ohio TV, y'all. We are here. It's me, Will, the Ebony Empress, and we have today Miss Attorney Scheril Murray-Powell. Oh, I messed up your name. Sorry. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm glad to be here with you guys. Scheril Murray-Powell, Esquire, cannabis, agricultural, dietary supplement, trade, psychedelics, and regulatory attorney. I'm also the international president for the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated.
Yes, she is. Okay. Many titles, many hats.
Many titles, yes. The EWF was founded by His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, Rastafari. So it's a huge honor to be a steward for his vision that was started in 1937.
That's dope. Wow. That's dope. So today we are honored to have this extraordinary guest, Miss Scheril Murray-Powell, Esquire. She's a leading attorney in the cannabis industry and in the agricultural industry, serving as a chief operating officer in the Justice Foundation?
Yeah, I was with the Justice Foundation. I was the first COO, and I implemented a lot of their help for the legacy community. I coined the phrase legacy to leadership. So it was a legacy to leadership strategy. A lot of our legacy people that I did applications for absolutely for free. They have their licenses now. Some are even investing in other licensees. So it's really beautiful to see when, you create a social equity pipeline or, a social equity life cycle where they go from people who may have criminal charges or other, social equity factors to where they are doing so well, they're so profitable that they're even investing in other people as they get started.
Yes. See, and to add to that, so my brother is an assistant U.S. district attorney.
Yes.
So he does civil rights work up in Jersey. And that's one of the things he always talks about is the reform process. There's not a whole lot of help when people are trying to come out of the reform process to be able to reestablish themselves there. And the people who do still reestablish themselves, they kind of struggle a little bit because yes, they may be able to get ahead financially and get stuff paid out, but it does take a lot of a mental toll to kind of rebuild and keep pushing forward. So yes, that's
a lot of people awesome. Don't focus on the mental toll of rehabilitation and just the self-worth. Even when I was running the Justice Foundation and having legacy guys come into my office, just the fact that they were being treated with dignity and respect. Some people said, this is the nicest thing that anyone's ever done for me. And I'm like, I'm just doing your application. Like, you're trying to tell me that no one has been nice to you in your life besides me doing this application. And that is some people's experience. And it's unfortunate. Some people have rough childhoods. There are a lot of factors which lead to people making the choices that they make, especially if it's economically motivated crime, right? And when we have even current issues like with the SNAP benefits and the government shutdown and the loss of jobs and the attack on DEI, a lot of people are forced. I think Black women, about between 300 and 400,000 Black women have been let go since this attack on DEI. So you got to think these are Black women who may be the breadwinner. They may be single moms. They may, with teenagers, they may have, bring a lot of funds into their current home with children. What happens to those children, especially if they're teens and they're seeing where their parent no longer has an income? these are the types of things that lead to these decisions. Not saying endorsing these decisions, but just acknowledging that, kids aren't born to be bad kids. There are a lot of environmental factors and things that lead to the choices that people make. And then we have to have a pathway to rehabilitation, to restoration. And that's one thing I'm really proud of, the work that we've done, with the Justice Foundation when I was COO, but also just as, impacting humanity, being a social justice attorney, being a human rights attorney, seeing the impact that I can have on people. There's so much work that I do that I don't charge for, just because it's just the right thing to do. And when you see people say, thank you so much, I'm so glad that you were able to help me. I wouldn't have been able to afford this. Yeah, I could use the income too, but you just have to have balance in all things. And to whom much is given, much is required.
Sure. Well,
says Spider-Man.
That's right. She knows the quote.
That was from Spider-Man?
Yeah, it was from Spider-Man.
In the Bible, yeah, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
They're in
my
both.
God. That is so
Yeah.
silly.
Spider-Man, I think is cool though. I'm a lean
I'm a
Spider-Man.
big Marvel fan. I have a third. Well, he's going to be 14 on Monday, so I have a 14-year-old. So we're Marvel junkies together. We've watched every Marvel movie since he's been born together, and there's a lot of lessons there. I'm not going to front.
That's awesome. I'm a DC fan. I can't say much.
I'm a DC fan too.
Are you DC fans?
We don't think we have to choose. We think we can have.
There we go. See, there's my people right there. There's my people.
Why would we limit ourselves to one or the other when they're both fantastic? They all have their merits. Yeah.
Exactly. So let me ask you this: you were the chair of the Broward County Medical Marijuana Advisory Board.
I was, yes. So, as we had legalization in Florida is where I did the majority of my legal work and where I'm barred as an attorney. And, one of the things that we're really proud of is Broward County, which is where I went to high school after I left New York, developed a Broward County Medical Marijuana Advisory Board. And I first was able to position one of my clients to be a part of it. And I was just there in the background in support. And then I joined the board eventually. And then I became the chair of the board. So it was, just really looking at policy and making recommendations for the Broward County's position on bills coming through the state legislature that had to do with medical marijuana. And it was a well-rounded out board. So there were people who were not very in favor of medical marijuana. We had people from law enforcement. We had people from universities, fire department, things like that. So it was good debate and dialogue.
Okay.
You'd be surprised how much archaic information's out there, or the prudish views that people have about a plant. It's astounding to me
that's
in 2025. We're still
the stigma. So that's why one of our main goals is to break that on this podcast. But it's when you hear some of the stuff that people say about weed and or marijuana, it's kind of crazy. They be like, well, it'll cause you to do this, it causes you to do that. And it's like, man, have you ever just tried it once and just try to have the experience and understand that it's really not that bad? The most you're going to do is go get some food.
Know thyself. So His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie says in one of his speeches, he's like, if you want to know yourself, look at Corinthians 4 verses 1-6, and that section of scripture, 1 Corinthians, I should say, part of scripture is about us being stewards of the mysteries of God. And I think that also applies to cannabis. So if you want to know yourself, then be a steward of the mysteries. And sometimes to be a steward of the mysteries of God, you have to really tap into yourself and understand yourself. I think it might apply to psychedelics as well, where, to truly know yourself, you have to understand some of these mysteries. And when you're wearing so many masks in life, sometimes being medicated will allow you to take these masks off and really get to know who you are as a true person. And it can be intimidating, but I don't think smoking is for everyone. I don't think it's a cure-all for everything. I think moderation is very important. You have to know thyself when you're consuming. I do also want to say that it has cured a lot of things. It has helped a lot of people with issues. It has helped a lot of people with trauma. It has helped people recover from drug addiction. So cannabis has a lot of benefits as a plant. And this is not a new revelation. This has been known for centuries, millennia. And also, it was used as medicine, prior to prohibition. So we have all the evidence. So it's for people to know themselves first and then use it in moderation. Anything can be abused. Anything literally can be abused. Something that I was laughing at last night, I probably shouldn't have been laughing, but I was. There were some videos on Instagram of people who were like, you should try Benadryl from the dollar store. The 99-cent store Benadryl, or the 99-cent store, there was something, NyQuil, and they were just sharing their experiences like, I'm lying down, but I'm alive, but I'm still, but I'm dead at the same time, kind of thing, and it's just, we make jokes of it, but it just goes to show you that, anything not taken properly, not taken in moderation can have hazardous effects, but you have to know yourself, know your source, right? Yes. Know where you're getting your medication from, whether it's a pill or an opiate or whatever it is, fentanyl, whatever it is, there's some merits. When the pharmacists and the scientists invented fentanyl, they weren't inventing fentanyl for us to have, addicted folks, I'm using that vernacular instead of like dope fiends, whatever, addicted folks like on, in Harlem on 125th Street, like, stuck. That's not why they invented it, but things can be abused, right? Opiates have helped many people. I would never be one to say, oh, down with pharmaceuticals, because, some people need pharmaceuticals to live, so you have to know yourself. You have to know your sourcing. You have to know what you're using it for. You have to know moderation. You have to know when you've gone too far. That goes for alcohol as well. Who doesn't like a glass of wine or a glass of champagne or a Hennessy on the rocks? Who doesn't love that? But, when you're going into the abyss, because you know yourself, the sourcing, and you know when you've gone too far. And then when you get to the point where you're about to go too far, that's where you start making decisions like, let me give somebody my keys. Let me spend the night here instead of going home. Let me take a nap. That goes for so many different things.
Yes, I agree.
Gotcha.
And I'm glad that you said that. I feel like
I can say the same about food. Like, you want to know where you got to know yourself and know what you're allergic to, how food sits on you, whether you're a celiac and you need gluten-free. You got to know yourself. You got to know the sourcing of your food. Is it produced with chemicals? Is it produced with animal goods and parts and things like that? You don't want to eat from a farm where they have a dog walking around and crapping on all the food. That's not sanitary, right?
That's not sanitary at all.
Right? But it's part of the produce safety training as well. So every farm should go through FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act training, which is produce safety training, which is developed by Cornell University. And it tells you something that, that's part of the training, is something that's so straightforward that, don't have dogs walking around your farm crapping on the produce. That's not sanitary. So, with all things, you need to know how it was produced, how it was sourced. And when you've gone too far with food, sometimes you don't need that extra slice of cheesecake. Maybe, sometimes you need to understand that milk doesn't sit well with you. You have to understand, I'm allergic to peanuts, but that bang bang sauce tastes so good. Those are things that you need to consider with just food. So when you're talking about something that has a a psychotic effect or intoxicating effect, you need this. It's even more important. So sugar is more addictive than cannabis.
Man,
Caffeine's more
man.
addictive than cannabis.
That's true.
We just
There's
had this
also
conversation.
caffeine too. A lot of people are addicted to caffeine.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
just had this conversation about Pepsi. How like we could drink Pepsi, it's good, but then like once you drink too much of it, you lose the taste of it. It's not good or anything.
Yes.
It's just at that point, it's just serving a
It
purpose.
turns me off
It's
now.
just like,
I've gone
yeah,
so over with it. It turns me off now.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your what is that? It's your capacity to have it. Like even with your tolerance level. Your
yeah,
tolerance level for caffeine has changed. Your tolerance level for Pepsi has changed, just like someone's tolerance level for cannabis changes and adjusts. Know thyself.
Definitely.
yeah,
And I feel like you touched on this as well, just like balance,
Mm-hmm.
like moderation, and just like finding balance within everything and having that holistic approach to wellness. I want to backtrack a little bit though. I'm not gonna lie. First and foremost, we're supposed to ask everyone, do you use cannabis? Why or why not?
mm-hmm.
No, I do. I do use cannabis. I only consume at home where I feel safe. I don't take cannabis from any random person. I do get a lot of legacy cannabis, and I consume it, but it depends on the sourcing. Depends on where I get it from. I think cannabis should. I like the idea of cannabis being tested. I do think cannabis testing is overly expensive.
Right.
I do think there should be subsidies for testing cannabis so that social equity participants don't have to eat that cost for them to be compliant, so we can facilitate compliance and facilitate legacy transitions from legacy to leadership to legal. But yeah, I do consume. I love cannabis. I think cannabis is a great plant. I think just the variety, and they say variety is the spice of life. So the variety of cannabis that's available from I hate to say strain, it's more plant chemistry, but there's the sativa versus indica. There's different types of the plant. There's so much variety. The terpenoid content, the terpenoid variation, the flavonoid variation, not to mention, how it was grown, how much sun it got,
Right.
how much water it got. Did someone talk to it? Did someone sing to it? Was music played to the plant? All those things affect the plant and how
Yes.
it grows. What was the nutrient management procedure? What was the pest management procedure? All those things create variance. So I love cannabis. I consume cannabis. I'm very particular about my cannabis. If I had my way, I would probably only consume Jamaican sun-grown cannabis ever, period.
Nice.
Old school, less than 15% THC, probably less than 10 if possible. That would be my sweet spot, and that's what I would have access to all the time. But we don't have international legalization yet, so I can't get access to that. So I make adjustments. I try things. I build little baby teeny weeny spliffs, so that I'm not over consuming for me.
Mhm.
And I like to keep my tolerance low, so I don't over consume. I really am not trying to go into space. I'm really trying to find balance,
Right.
And that's my consumption life.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Would love to know, like, just a little bit about your background, how you got into cannabis.
Yeah.
If you want to share.
Yeah, so a couple phases of it. So, grew up in a Jamaican household. So, cannabis wasn't around me. My parents are non-consumers. My parents, I did have another dad, my biological dad, who's passed on. He did consume, but never around me. I found it after he passed away. So that's one phase of it. Being Jamaican, it's all ever present in just our culture, which also I think is unfair to Rastafari community because it is aligned with Jamaica. It's part of the culture, but Rastafari has been very persecuted for cannabis in the past. It's definitely been gateway to the prison system across the Caribbean especially in the United States as well. So that's one part of my cannabis. How'd you get into cannabis? And then from that, my personal consumption started in college. So I went to college, and then my freshman year started consuming, and then I enjoyed consuming, but I've had times when I've stopped consuming for many years and then gone back to consuming and things like that. When I became an attorney, I was not consuming at that point. I was so scared straight with passing the bar, passing the, the, what do they call it, fitness for becoming an attorney, that I wasn't consuming anything. Once I passed the bar, I just practiced areas of law like probate. I did contracts. I did stuff that the law firm I worked at that they did, still not consuming. And then, one day there was a hurricane weekend. The firm was closed, and I was like, let me figure out what's, next for me. Let me meditate. And then God said to me, you need to pursue cannabis law. And I was like, what?
Wow.
That's not even a thing. Like, what are you talking about? And then I Googled, and I was like, wait, this is a thing. This is a thing, and it's happening right now. Like, it was so interesting because it was like gambling versus cannabis legalization. Like, those were the headlines, because the gambling industry is also a vice industry. So there's like this adversarial relationship between the gambling industry, which makes money off people consuming alcohol and getting so intoxicated from alcohol that they don't, their decision making is affected, versus, cannabis, your decision making isn't affected by consumption. So they were trying to limit the legalization. So that was interesting. Wow. The fact that I would go to cannabis events and there was no one who looked like me, no one on stage, no one in the audience, no one in the vending area. And I was like, this is indigenous. What? So I knew that was a fight that I was prepared to take on. Wow. And shortly after I made that decision, I was like, that weekend I reached out to my managing partner. I was like, I want to pursue cannabis law. And he was like, I said, I want to pursue an area of law that's not too dissimilar to what I'm doing. Okay. And he said, okay, come into my office on Monday. And I went in and I was like, I want to do cannabis law. He's like, I don't even know if that's legal. And I was like, all right, I am going to get you information. And he said, go get me information, come back. So I made a booklet for him. I made a booklet for me. And then I was done by 4:00. And I was back in his office, and he's like, okay, I'll read this on the plane. And I was like, oh, he didn't say no. And I was like, I'm a cannabis attorney. And from that moment, I was a cannabis attorney. The firm sent me to my first event. And that's how I started practicing cannabis law in 2016.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. And it's been like my first event I went to, I looked around, I was like, there's no one that looks like me, no one from my culture here. This is crazy. As many of us went to jail for this, as many of us, like, just being Rastafari and knowing our relationship with it, nobody in the room. I was like, nah, we're not doing this. So I was like, the next event, I was like, you have no diversity on your stage. I need to speak. And it worked.
Wow.
And I've been speaking ever since. I don't even go to conferences if I'm not speaking. And I haven't for years. If I'm not speaking, I'm not going. So I've been on stages all over the world.
That's awesome. Amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. So let me ask you this. So you've been recognized as High Times top 100 influencers. How did that make you feel, and in that validation to know that?
Thank you for asking that. That was a huge, huge honor. High Times is like legend, right? Just the pictures of the weed and the trichomes, and just look. It's like weed porn, right? It has been, but then they also have the intellectual articles and things like that. So I had a high respect for the High Times brand, and I'd seen prior people that I love and respect win the High Times 100 in previous years. So when I got I can't remember if it was an email or call, or an email and a call, I was like, this is kind of part of the pinnacle. I'm going to say that's the pinnacle of my career, but this is definitely, part of the pinnacle. And again, I do my work in seasons. I learned to do that to, have balance in my life. And at that point that I won the High Times 100, I was starting to think about, what is my succession plan? What am I going to do what's another view of cannabis that, or this work that I need to do so I don't get bored, so I feel like I'm impactful. So it came at the right time for me because I felt like it was a huge honor for me. I remember, I remember there was this attorney, I'm not going to name him, but there was an attorney, I saw him at a conference after I got it. And I said, I got the High Times 100. I feel like that's like the pinnacle of my career. And then he was like, yeah, so you might as well retire now. And I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, no, I'm going to enjoy this. You're not going to say,
oh my goodness.
I was like, because he's known me from the beginning of my career, like this particular attorney. And, I was like, no, I'm not going to let you steal this moment. I'm really going to enjoy it. And they haven't done a High Times 100 since that year. So there hasn't been another High Times 100.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So we were the last class of the High Times 100. And I enjoyed it. And the people that I won with are good friends, like Leo Bridgewater. Like, I have so much respect for him. I love him so much. There were a lot of people in that class that I'd been doing this work with for a number of years. So it felt good to be recognized alongside them. And then the other part of that, I know this, I'm going on about this question, but because no one's ever asked me this question. So, and thank you. But
yeah, you're welcome.
Part, and I think I have it like in this room right here, like over there. I still have the magazine. Because you get a magazine. I saw the magazine in Barnes and Noble, which was beautiful. So yeah, the High Times 100 was definitely a highlight for me. There was something else I was going to say about the High Times 100. Like the award itself is at my parents' house. Yeah, and my favorite part about the High Times 100 is what I got to write. And when I got the High Times 100, I was able to give a shout out to the legacy community. And that was my favorite part, is what I said about it. This award is representing those people, those courageous people, those brave people who preserved our genetics. And that was my favorite part, is like, in a space that was supposed to be about me and my work, I used that space to uplift the people whose shoulders I was standing on and let them feel seen. When you think about this industry, especially for someone who's been doing it as long as I have been, first of all, I've been really blessed, because being an attorney gives you a certain amount of privilege for doing this work and getting involved with this work. It's, part of it's loving the plant, but the other part of it, in a lot of cases, is privilege, because you need money to go to the conferences. You need money to do the podcast. You need money to be able to do daytime things, so you're not working during the daytime when these webinars are happening and things like that. People don't really think about the privilege of being in, the privilege it takes to really be in the cannabis industry in the way I was, and a lot of people are. And as a result, we've seen some really great advocates, great people who did the early work so that we can be here, who did the early work so we even have adult use in all these states, that are no longer in the industry just because they couldn't afford to be in this industry, because they have to work. And cannabis, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, doesn't pay. So all of us go through that phase of like, what's the ROI, or will I sell out because I need that check? It's challenging. So those who are still here, especially when I see people who, they're OGs, they were there when I was there in the beginning, or before me, doing this work. The petition people, like, I think those are the most undervalued people in this industry, those people who's like, especially being in Florida, I'm in New York now, but being in Florida, on street corners, going to beaches, going to concerts, going to all these hot events with their pads, asking people, hey, you want to fill out a survey about marijuana, about cannabis, blah, blah, blah. Like, they had to do that. Some of them did that every day for years for pennies so that we can get something on the ballot. You know what I mean? So I always like to acknowledge those people because I didn't do that. I did petitioning for, restoring the vote for felons in Florida. I didn't do any petitions for cannabis. I was lawyering or I was advocating in other ways. But being an attorney gave me the privilege that, I could work a few hours a week and make enough that I could pay my bills. I'm not making tons of money, and I wasn't ever making tons of money, but my bills are paid, and then I can use the rest of the time to do the advocacy, the webinars, the podcasts, the conferences, all the things that don't pay you. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult. It's challenging. And that's why we don't necessarily see the representation that we would like to see. It's much better now than when I started, when Roz McCarthy started, and things like that. But those are the reasons why also you don't see the representation. It's just like jury duty. Like, people go to jury duty and they're trying to get out of jury duty. Why? Because they have to keep their jobs, not, pay, keep their businesses open. A lot of us are entrepreneurial. Who's going to run the store if I'm here at jury? But that person who's being accused of a crime or in a civil lawsuit that's unfair, that they're being papered to death by the other side's attorney, they need you to be in the jury. Yeah. But you just can't afford to. So you tend to see the, mainstream retirees making these important decisions and sending people to jail. And so it's very similar. And that's why when we do have the privilege, we have to be committed to the service. Yeah. And I feel like it's an obligation for me as a lawyer, because I'm not making minimum wage. I don't have to have tons of clients. I could, and there are a lot of cannabis attorneys that all they do is lawyer and make lots of money. That just wasn't my portion. My portion is doing enough lawyering to fund the activism that I have to do and making it easier for the next generation of activists. But said all that to say, there's a lot of really good people who did a lot of the early work who are no longer in the industry, and you'll never hear their name in the industry. And the only reason we're here right now is because of them and them sacrificing until they could not sacrifice anymore without losing their whole lives.
The front lines are important. They're like really important. And that's why I say, like, a lot of people that get your foundations, usually they do disappear in the background. Like they fade away. And then that's the best way to honor them, is to do what you did, win the award for them. So yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing.
And that's how the systems are set up, though, as well. Like, even with, some social equity licenses, there are people, like, even as soon as social equity passes in their state, or an adult use with social equity passes in their state, they're waiting for the people to fail so that they can pick up the licenses, pennies on the dollar. That's their business strategy, is counting on people failing so that they can come in and get their license. Okay. The system's set up that way for people to fail out of the system. And people are counting on people failing out of the system. But some people are going to be successful, and that's why we can never tolerate any false narrative about social equity doesn't work.
I would say if you're serious, go for it. Like, if you're serious and you're locked in, go for it. Don't wait. Don't hold up. Definitely go for it, because that's the only thing that would really help is consistency and discipline. Those are the only two things you really need to make sure this thing works. And if you're going to be locked in for the long haul, I mean, the cannabis industry, I know for me speaking, I haven't been in it that long. Bree has had more experience, and she said, she's been around different states too, so she's got way more experience than me. But me being a newbie, it's like, that's the biggest thing that I see. A lot of these guys who are out here are hungry. They're really locked in and focused to what they want to do, and then continue to put themselves out there day by day, representing their brands, representing who they are, like knowing who they are. So
yeah, I think that's very important, and sometimes we just need to accept that those people who are going to get the benefit and are hungry aren't the same people who did the work to get you there.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay if I never get a license, but I did a lot of the work because I was just doing the work to do the work.
Natural progression.
But those who are hungry and they get the opportunity should say, even though I didn't do the work, I'm going to contribute in another way now that I can. I'm going to open the door for somebody else. I'm going to invest in somebody's business. I'm going to go lobby, instead of being home. They still have a contribution to make.
Definitely.
Because you're standing on the shoulders of giants. So when the doors open for you, when someone, fought their way, like Terminator, arm falling off, still getting shot at, whatever, and they open the door and collapse, and then you walk over their body to get inside the room, you still need to, you need to work. You need to do some work. So that's really important to me, I think, of that messaging around. We all have a contribution to make. Some of us made it before, and then some of us have to make it after.
I got you.
I love that. Couldn't agree more.
Where you want to take it? You get a question?
Sure.
Not the interview you expected, but it's the interview you're getting.
No, I don't mind it. I like a good switch up, honestly. I don't like sticking to the script. It's hard for me because I have to read the script, and I just feel like it kind of gets monotonous sometimes. That's just me personally, though. But I did want to ask a little bit more about your background and affiliation with Rastafari. I would love to know more about that and your own perspective.
Yeah, Rastafari is so important to me. I'll start with my first Rastafari impression, and I just spoke about this to the Rastafari Mansions of South Florida for our coronation event. So the 95th anniversary of the joint coronation of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I and his wife, Empress Waziri Menen Asfa, coronated together as Emperor and Empress. So I made a speech this past weekend at the 95th anniversary in Miami. And I said my first Rastafari impression was my aunt, Candace, who was there, and I helped her do the centerpieces, which were fruit, this beautiful fruit thing she came up with. So I'm sticking toothpicks and fruit everywhere. But she was my first Rastafari impression. I remember seeing her at Christmas holidays and different holidays with her two children, Rastafari children, and, just the grace and the poise. And, when you see Rastafari, you usually recognize us, whether it's our crown, I don't tend to wear my hair covered, but, a lot of the sisterns, empresses, daughters will wear, their hair wrapped. That's just not something that ever came natural for me. Not a lot of makeup, sometimes no earrings, long dresses, attire, but there isn't any one thing that is Rastafari. But I just remember her poise and dignity, and how free her children were as well. They just felt like they were more free than me. And then when I was in college, that's when I stopped, perming my hair or creaming my hair. And I remember going home, and then my mom's like, "Well, you didn't perm your hair. What's going on?" And then I permed it. That was at freshman year at Christmas, and I permed it. And that was the last time I permed my hair. But I did it just because, to please my mom and things like that. So I always had a natural vibes. I went to my first protest at 5, so I'm very much a Pan-Africanist. Know about Garvey. I'm a Garveyite, all the things. But later on, that's when I got to know His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I and his contribution to the world, and also about Ethiopia. and that Africa, the continent, that's not even Africa's real name. It was Ethiopia, and that the Atlantic Ocean is really supposed to be the Ethiopian Ocean. It only changed, like, I think in the 1960s, from the Ethiopian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, things like that. But yeah, the Rastafari it's a livity. So it's a way of life, right? And to be a part of it, it represents freedom. And that's why so many people are attracted to it, is because it really is about do good, live a good life, be free, and, through Rastafari, roots and culture reggae music emerged. And then you have one of our greatest ambassadors for Rastafari, Bob Marley. So I grew up listening to Bob Marley and his messaging. Some of his verses are taken directly from His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie's speeches. Right? I don't tie my hair, but I am Rastafari. And then also making peace to when, now when I'm in prayer, I'll take my shama and I will cover my hair because I want to, not because I have to, or I'm forced to, or I feel like I'm less than if I don't do it, but because I'm moved to. But I don't expect everyone to. And that's the beauty of Rastafari, is it's about a way of life. It's about a livity. It's not a ritualistic religious thing. There's nothing more beautiful and powerful than being at a bingi, like a Nyabingi service, ceremony, churchical, where we're giving Isis, and it's just praising. It's just Isis, and we're in unity. And there's some Rastafari chants and the drumming. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful space of really reverencing His Imperial Majesty. And then when you think about His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I and Empress Mene, that lineage, that royal lineage of Ethiopia, keep in mind he was born 1892, 1930 was coronated. So these are early days. But the lineage, the royal lineage, is from King David.
Really?
Once King Solomon and Queen of Sheba got together and made their child Menelik, everyone who sat on the throne of Ethiopia through the end of the throne of Ethiopia has been through the lineage of King Solomon, King David. So His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie was from that royal lineage. So it's a divine royal lineage.
Okay. I didn't know that. I had no idea that Africa used to be called Ethiopia. I'm late to that. And I'm late about the ocean. I don't remember if it's
the Greek or who gave us the term Africa.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so much. And Ethiopia, the word Ethiopia is in the Bible.
What does it mean? Do you know off the top of your head? Ethiopia? Does it have like a certain meaning?
I'm not sure.
I wonder why they felt the need to change it.
I can look it up.
The need to change the name?
Yeah.
That's the same thing as enslavement, when they would be like, your name is Toby.
Yeah, fair.
and it's the same with the man-made borders. It's like the man-made borders of, where Europe was carving up Africa, and then the only unconquered African country is Ethiopia, because His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie fought against Mussolini. He went into exile for a few years, and between prayer and negotiating with the League of Nations and having some tough times, he was able to return victorious. And that's why Ethiopia's never been conquered. Wow. The oldest Judeo-Christian state in the entire world is Ethiopia, because of that lineage and because of the Queen of Sheba bringing the Judaic faith back with her, along with the son of Solomon. It's recorded in the Deborah Nagas.
Ethiopia is Greek origin, and it means of burnt face or sunburnt face is what the actual meaning of the word is.
Oh my goodness.
Mm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
There's so much, and we're, the joy is the learning of it, right? And the joy is the, demonstrating who we really are. So, like, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember, but back in the day, well, I guess we remember this part. So, in most Black homes in the United States, there's a picture of what, Martin Luther King, Barack Obama now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, it'd be His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie was the picture, because when the coronation happened, it was in newspapers. And then he came to visit the United States in 1954 and 1963, and that was in the newspapers. So that's
awesome.
Some, people, especially Black people, that's their first impression of Black royalty, is him being crowned, coronated with his wife, the joint coronation. So they had pictures of us as royalty instead of like the old stigma of jungles and things like that. That was the impression of, no, that's not true. Like, we have this king who was just crowned, and royalty from all around the world came or sent their people to honor him because of his royal lineage going back to David and Solomon in the Bible.
Man, I need to do my research now. Now I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
like, this is all news.
I'm ready to hit the Google web to be like, what's going on?
It's all true. It's all true. Yes, and that's why we honor him. That's why we honor and reverence him. His holy name, like His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I. So that was his coronation name, Haile Selassie I. Power of the Trinity. But he was Rastafari earlier in life. So in Ethiopian culture, you get titles. He's been crowned 3 times. So he didn't start off as an emperor. He was crowned 3 times. So he got different names over time.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right.
Gonna have to go down a rabbit hole now.
I'm going after this.
It's exciting. It's exciting to share. And he was a Christian. So it's like, for people who are like, oh my gosh, Christian. I mean, the true Christianity. Yeah, he was a Christian. He's an Orthodox Christian. He followed the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. He founded Ethiopian Orthodox churches all around the world. Yeah,
doesn't Ethiopia have their own Bible?
Yes, they do have their own Bible, which is an expanded Bible. The Apocrypha. You may have heard of the Apocrypha.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So there are more books in that because the oldest Bible was found in Ethiopia. Biblical texts, I should say.
Wow.
Because again, the faith came with Queen of Sheba. They were sun worshippers, I believe, before, and then Yahweh, the God of Israel, became the God of Ethiopia.
Interesting. Okay, I love that. I'm sorry. Well, were you about to segue to something?
Yeah, I'm great. Say we're right at 45 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Just keep it short here.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So with Rastafari, so I will say, we can wrap up there. For Rastafari, cannabis is our holy sacrament. It is our holy sacrament. We have a culturally protected right, as recognized by the United Nations, to consume cannabis. We should have our religious freedom respected to consume cannabis and have any related rituals that we have from a faith-based perspective. There are some states that are recognizing faith-based use, even if it's just from a communication standpoint. I attend the New York Office of Cannabis Management faith-based conversation calls once a month. The New Jersey CRC, they have focus groups with us as Rastafari community because they're recognizing the fact that all of this time it's basically religious persecution, prohibition for us. And even with legalization, because we're faith-based users and we need to own the chain of custody because we have rituals throughout the process of producing. We have ceremonies throughout the process of producing. So we can't just go into a store and pick cannabis off the shelf because it hasn't gone through the ceremonies that are required for our faith-based use.
Yeah.
So that's what we fight for. So I'm like at the forefront of the sacramental use movement, not just for Rastafari, but all indigenous people that use, all faith-based, whether it's, Muslim people, some Muslim people, Hindu especially, but focus mostly around Rastafari because we're known for it. But there are other communities that need to benefit from it because they have ceremonies related to the cultivation. That's why we need to own the chain of custody. So even when you have legalization in a jurisdiction, for us, we're still illegal if we don't purchase from those locations. But if we purchase from those locations, it's not sacramental. It's not the purity that we need for our rituals and ceremonies. So that's why it's really important, the work that we're doing around sacramental use. I was just in Ghana for an ITIL certification workshop. So we were developing the ITIL is vital, it's purity, certification for cannabis, for ganja. Wow. So we're developing that along with the Rastafari mansions and organizations. And then there's like the technical document, which is more about cultivating and producing. And then there's going to be an overlay document with the spirituality and the rituals. So we were working on both of those.
That's amazing. And that really is a very serious and beautiful work that you're doing. So thank you.
It is.
For
it
your
very much is.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I couldn't do anything else. That's I was given these gifts for certain purposes. I'm grateful, and I'm grateful for the people who are doing the work with me. So we had Rastafari from all over Virgin Islands, from Ethiopia, all around the world, and we were just workshopping with pieces of paper stuck on the walls and markers, and just making sure we're trying to get it right because it's so important to us and important to our culture.
That's beautiful.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. We're glad you finally got to get you on the interview. I know
yes, we've been wanting to get you on the podcast for so long, all year.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I love this work, and I love what you're doing, and I'm so proud of you. I'm always talking about succession planning. I don't want to be necessarily at the forefront forever. I think I want to elevate new voices like yourself. So I look forward to us discussing in the future how I can, promote you guys and, get you on stages and whether it's a following or whatever you need, because my time is, doing this work is coming to a close. It's really about how I magnify other people's brands and promote other people who are continuing the work and picking up the mantle and moving forward with the legacy, which is great. It's a great legacy. I'll just also shout out the people of color, Black people who did part of the work but had to go into hiding, because especially the women. So a lot of times you don't see like the older Black woman who was an activist. And when I first started, I was like, I'd be asking like Irv, and, different people, Bobby Tuna, and I'm like, where are the old Black activists? Where are the silver-haired Black activists? And they would be like, they'd come, but they wouldn't stay. Yeah, they came, but they wouldn't stay because there was a higher risk of incarceration and there was a higher risk of losing custody of your children. So they couldn't
There's
do
always
the
a
work
higher risk
in the same visibility as their white counterparts. So it's also a privilege that I can be like, I use cannabis on camera, and advocating for cannabis, because back in the day it wasn't like that. You didn't have that freedom, especially as a Black person.
Definitely. Very true. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on our podcast. We all got busy schedules, but we were finally able to have you on. Thank you again. And of course, shout out to our producer and founder of OH-HighYo, Anthony Gaines. with Gaines Media. And am I forgetting anything, Will?
Where can we find you? Where can we find you on anything as far as Instagram, socials?
You can find me behind a puff of smoke. No, I'm just kidding. You can find me. You can find me on Instagram at Virtue and Victory. So with an N, Virtue and Victory. You can also find me on Instagram at Ethiopian's World. So Ethiopian with an S, World.
Okay. All right. We'll look you up. Once again, this has
Thank
been
you so much. You're doing great work.
Thank you. See y'all. We're about to head out.
Honored to have you. Have a
Bye,
wonderful
guys.
evening.